Hello, hello. Happy Sunday afternoon if you're watching. Um, yeah, let's get streaming. If you were here a little earlier, you would have seen a card explosion. I just the sleeves are so slick sometimes. I just kind of sprayed it all over the table. It's been that kind of a day, I think. Um, Yeah, so I'm Countertop Commander and I play Magic. I specifically play physical Magic. I don't do anything online. I do everything with physical cards. I have a lot of Magic cards, and so I like to play. I like to try every strategy that I can. I specifically like to play Commander. I think it's probably the most fun format out there. Well, still mostly still most fun format. um, I kind of play a little bit. Well, I've been playing Commander for quite some time now, so I play sort of very casually, and that's what you'll see on screen most of the time. Is just sort of me playing casually. I sometimes play with groups, but mostly these streams are going to be dedicated to playing this way, where I play multiple decks at the same time and just kind of see what they do. We try our best to, or I try my best to, kind of make things even and not forget stuff. But I'm prone to forget stuff. I'm prone to missing combinations and counter spells here and there and stuff like that, removal. So I do my best though, and on Sundays, I try to dedicate these days to kind of teaching how to play Magic, showing you all the steps and kind of going through each turn phase slowly and kind of going through my decision making process, which, like I said, isn't necessarily the best, but it is. It served me pretty well, I think. So let's go and get started. Hey, Mad. Uh, but you're here anyhow, anyway. Yeah, well, I guess you can get to see, and like I said, what I was just saying anyway was, I kind of do slower Magic, easier strategy type stuff on Sundays, so I can go through the steps of showing how to play Magic. It's just kind of a, I mean, it can be whatever you want it to be, really. That's the good thing about Magic, is that there's so many different ways to play that you can kind of make it what you want it to be. And in this case, I play, like I said, sort of casually, so I don't like go crazy with trying to make the best decks that I mean, like, I make I build decks to win, but I don't necessarily build them to be competitive, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's go and kind of get started. So with these Sundays, with the decks that I choose here, these are going to be 3 out of 10 decks that I actually built specifically to teach Magic. So they're very simple. They're all one single color Magic. So Magic has 5 different colors, and you can see on the back of the card here, there's those 5 little circles. So white, blue, green, red, and black are the different colors of Magic. And so each of these will be only a single color. They're all based around creatures, and they're all based around a specific creature type. So we got zombies right here. We'll also have Hydras, which is a deck that I'm testing because I did a little bit of deck building on stream a while ago. And then the last deck that we'll play today, or that we'll have out in this game today, is going to be soldiers. So the other tribes that it's sort of, they're called tribal decks because they're all based around kind of, or focusing on one particular creature type. There's also dragons and angels and sphinxes and goblins and thopters and different things like that. So there's like I don't know, something like 50 different creature types or something. So there's a lot to play around with in that regard. So getting started with this particular zombie deck. This zombie deck is kind of mid-range control when it isn't aggro. So aggro is a strategy that's just, well, all of these decks are primarily aggro with the intention, or what that means is basically they're just trying to knock out your opponent's life total as quickly as possible. And they're not trying to do too much more than that. The underlying strategy for this particular one is that zombies are generally kind of mid-range and they're kind of control. So Mid-range being that they don't necessarily play, like there's kind of like really small creatures, and you can play a bunch of small creatures all at once and try to take out your opponent that way. Mid-range, you play stuff on basically turn 4 or 5 that are a little bit bigger, a little tougher, to try to knock out, basically you're wanting one of your mid-range creatures to take out multiple small creatures, essentially, or negate them in some form or fashion. And so essentially what we're going to look for is, if we take apart this hand here, we have 3 land to start out with. That's going to be what we use to cast spells with. We have 2 creatures here. We have a 3-cost zombie and a 5-cost zombie. And this 5-cost zombie is actually really cool in that it allows us to sacrifice a creature to find a different zombie card and a swamp and put them into our hand. So we'll be getting rid of our own zombies to try to get better zombies, especially because we'll be creating tokens to sacrifice for this Corpse Harvester. So we just need to get up to the 5 mana to play it. And then we have some we have Reanimate. So these 2 spells right here are cards that bring things back from the graveyard. So again, sort of the theme being zombies, we're going to try to be bringing them back and reusing them as much as we can. So otherwise, our commander here, which is sort of the general for our deck, is a human. So she's not a zombie herself, but she sacrifices creatures and makes a bunch of zombies. So we can actually, when we sacrifice one zombie, or one creature basically, we'll make multiple zombies, and then we can, technically speaking, sacrifice those zombies to make more zombies. Meaning that it's put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. So we sacrifice a 2/2 zombie, and it gets us 2 more zombies. So that's going to be really cool. Yeah, exactly. She's actually literally a necromancer. She's Ghoul Caller Gissa is what her name is. So yeah, we're going to be necromancing it up with this deck. We'll have to get her out though, so we need to get to her 5 mana to be able to cast her. And looky there, there's actually the other mana that we technically need to be able to get to 5 mana, so that's really good. We'll go ahead and play that swamp that we just drew. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and put this Ebon Stronghold, this land. So, sorry, I should go back a little bit. So the turn structure for Magic starts out with, well, first you start with 7 cards in hand, and then at the beginning of your turn, if you're playing in a group like I'm kind of simulating here, you get to draw a card on your first turn. If you're only playing against one other opponent, then if you go first, you don't get to draw on your first turn. So we start out with the turn structure is you start out with an untap step. So untapping just deals with whenever something in the game exerts its energy to be able to do something, we represent it exhausting its energy for that round of turns by turning it sideways or tapping it. So at the beginning of your turn, before anything happens, you untap all of the things that you have that are tapped. After that, we go to an upkeep step, which is just kind of like a cleanup step. Some things need to that you want to have happen at the beginning of a turn, but we want basically they've written the rules where the untap step is what happens before anything else, and nothing else can happen during that step. So you untap, you do an upkeep. If we have any upkeep effects, then they'll go on to they'll happen at that stage. Then after that, you draw a card, and that's what we did. We drew a swamp. After that, we have basically the part of the turn where you can play anything. It's called the main phase. So each player can play 1 land on their turn during their main phase. So we'll go ahead and play this Ebon Stronghold into play tapped, and we're doing it now because it comes into play tapped. We don't have anything else that we want to do, but we don't want a land later on to come into play tapped and make it so that we can't use it. Because essentially this land can't be used as long as it's tapped. So the beginning of our next turn, though, we'll be able to use it. So we have this Ebon Stronghold. After that, if you have creatures, you can decide to go into combat, which we don't, so we won't go into combat. And then After that, if you did go into combat, you can go to a second main phase where you can cast spells and play things just like in the first main phase. And then after that, you end the turn. So we're going to go ahead and end the turn and move on to the Hydra tribal deck over here. So Hydras are mono green. This is kind of so again, it's sort of an aggro deck. So we're going to try to be attacking our opponents until they lose all their life. In this case, Hydras are kind of a big tribe. They're all made up of really big creatures. So this deck is very slow. So we're really hoping that our big creatures can knock out any small creatures, and especially with zombies, they're going to have a lot of little zombies that we're going to have to figure out how to get our way through. So we started with a hand that was a little bit better, or kind of good for what we're trying to do, and that we have 4 land. We're starting out with 4 land. We have 2 cards over here that are going to go really well with the Hydra, our commander, and then we have 1 Hydra in our hand that we can try to make use of if we need to. So our commander, as a Hydra, he's a 8/7 creature versus the Necromancer that we're up against with the zombies is only a 3/4. So the first number is actually the power of the creature, how much damage it can deal in a single turn. And then the second number, in this case the 7 with Gargos Vicious Watcher. Gargos has 7 toughness, which means that that's the amount of damage he can take in a single turn. So it's kind of like stamina or something. And once that number once you take a total of 7 damage in a turn, or if he took a total of 7 damage in a turn, he'd die. So the cool thing about him is that he makes it so that Hydras cost less to cast by literally 4 mana. So with this Hydra right here, if we had Gargos out and somehow we only had 2 land out, we could still cast this Hydra for a pretty big number just because of how its cost reads. It's an X value. So the X can be any number that we want to choose that we can pay for, I should say. Any number that we want that we can actually pay for. So in this case, even though if we only somehow had only 2 lands, but still had Gargos out, then we could choose X equals 4 and pay the rest of the cost here. So I guess I didn't really talk about the cost on a card. The cost is in the upper right hand corner here. I should get it closer. Come on, focus. There he goes. You can see the X and the 2 green symbols. So the 2 green symbols just means that you have to use green mana to be able to cast it, to pay for that part of the cost. So with the Necromancer deck, that would be lands that produce black mana or swamps in general. You can kind of see these forests have that green symbol on them here at the bottom to tell you what kind of mana it gives you. So let's go ahead and see what our turn looks like. So we do our untap. We don't have anything to untap. We draw a card after that. So untap, upkeep, draw. So we got a forest. That's really good. We're looking to get up to 6 mana. So it'll be a little slow until we get there. But once we get there, we can take advantage of the rest of Gargos' ability that I didn't really talk about with these 2 cards. And then also maybe see about playing a big Hydra. So we'll put that into our hand. Then we will play a forest during our main phase. And then end the turn with nothing else to do. The final deck that we have is Audric, Lunarch Marshal. So he's a white card versus the green and a black. Audric is all about soldiers, and he makes other soldiers stronger. So the Necromancer makes zombies. The Hydra makes it easier to cast Hydras. Audric basically rallies all of your creatures and helps them share their abilities with each other. So there are a number of different combat abilities that creatures can have, and Audric makes it so that if one of your creatures has it, then all of your creatures has it. And so it's, like when this card, when it reads, it's At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike. The same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So, oh, thank you. I made this table myself. I wanted to be able to actually I kind of made this table halfway for specifically for this purpose so that I can make it easier to play Magic this way. So yeah, I did the whole pattern and I stained it and everything. So okay, let's see. So with Audric, we are also kind of a smaller tribe. We have smaller creatures, generally speaking, that we're going to try to essentially pump up and win the game with. So we are starting with 3 land, which is going to go really far with helping us get out Audric. Audric costs 4 mana, so we're really looking to get to 4 mana. But we also have a couple of really big creatures in our hand, some other kind of warriors and helpers up here. So this guy is 4 costs, so we're probably going to play him after we play Audric. And then we have Sun Titan at 6 mana, so that's going to be really strong later on. He has a really, really good ability. Otherwise, we have Thalia's Lieutenant, which is a soldier that gets stronger the more soldiers you play. And then we have this really cool card right here, Aura of Silence. It's not a creature, it's an enchantment. And so essentially when we play it, it's just going to it's going to sit out there on the battlefield and have an effect that presumably helps us out. And in this case, it makes it so that all of our opponents trying to play artifacts and enchantments will make it cost them more to be able to do that. So it'll make it harder to be able to take advantage of these kinds of static effects. So let's hope that we can get into that 4 mana, though. If we get into that 4 mana, we will be golden. So let's go ahead and see. We don't have anything to untap, so we draw a card for the turn. And Keeper of the Accord, that's a good one. Although we really do want to get to 4 mana, so this is another 4 cost card. So that'll be good once we get there, but for now we're just looking for that other land. We will go ahead and play this Plains, and we don't have anything that costs 1 mana in our hand, so we will go ahead and pass, and we get to go back to the Necromancers. So let's see what they're capable of. See if the Necromancers have anything useful or special. So I should have gone the other way. That's okay. Okay, so like I said, here's our hand. At the beginning of our turn, we untap. We go to upkeep. We don't have an upkeep or anything that happens during the upkeep. So we'll draw a card for the turn. Ashnod's Altar. So that's going to be really good once we can get tokens, because this is an artifact. And like I said, we were talking about artifacts just a little bit ago. This artifact allows us to sacrifice a creature to get mana. So in this case, it's colorless mana, but it just means that we can use small creatures to pay for getting bigger creatures out if we need to. So that's going to be, if we can get a lot of cards in our hand and we can get a lot of tokens out, it'll be really, really strong later on. For now, we are just going to go ahead and play a swamp and during our main phase, and then pass the turn, because our next spell, our plan is basically to play this Midnight Keeper so that we can take advantage of its ability. So its ability is whenever a non-token creature you control dies. So whenever we have something that dies, we take a damage, but we draw a card. So that's going to be really good for getting card advantage, what's known as card advantage. And card advantage just means that if we're drawing more cards than our opponents are, then we have more opportunities to do things. And the more opportunities we have, the more likely, the more probable it is we'll be able to win the game. So hopefully we can take advantage of that. So we'll start the Hydra's turn. We go untap. We don't have anything to untap. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw a card. And it is Spearbreaker Behemoth. So this is a really cool card in that it's a creature that's indestructible. So that means that it can't die, essentially. It can die, but only under very specific circumstances. And then it can make Power 5... It can make other creatures that I control with Power 5 or greater indestructible. for a single turn. So this is going to be good once we get Gargos out, but it's really high cost. So we're kind of still looking for maybe one more land so that we can be able to cast Gargos. After that, we will pass the turn. So yeah, the other reason that I made this this table was so that we had some family members that are getting a little bit older, and I didn't want them to have to reach across the table for board game stuff. So this is basically a big lazy Susan so that we could put a board game on top of it. And then if they wanted to reach something, they wouldn't have to reach all the way across the table or have to ask somebody else to reach it for them. They could just turn the table and themselves and get to the pieces that they wanted to get to. So it was kind of double reason for the massive lazy Susan. Okay, so let's see. We don't have anything on our upkeep and nothing on we don't have anything to untap or anything during our upkeep, so we'll draw a card, and we got our other planes. That's really good. I like this. I'm liking that we're getting the lands that we need. So we will play that second planes, and I think that Thalia's Lieutenant can help pump or make our other soldiers stronger if we play it in the late game, but since we have the mana to play it now and nobody else has any creatures out, I'm going to go ahead and cast it. So it costs one colorless and one white, and it starts off as a 1/1, but like I said, the more humans that we play, the stronger it'll get. So we will look forward to a stronger Thalia's Lieutenant later on. Let's pass the turn after that and go on to back to the Necromancers, who will also play a card this turn, definitely, since we have that zombie in hand. So we don't have anything to untap, and we don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw a card. Ooh, Deathmark Prelate. So this is another guy who isn't technically a zombie, but he has an ability that deals with zombies, and in this case he has pay 2 colorless and a black, tap him. So tapping, some creatures have abilities that they tap themselves with to be able to do the ability. Otherwise, creatures can just attack, and when they attack, they'll expend their energy for the turn, and they'll become tapped. But in this case, his ability is pay 2 colorless and a black, tap him, sacrifice a zombie, destroy target non-zombie creature. So we're going to make zombies, and then we're going to use them to kill other people's creatures. Punish them for not having zombies and being so cool, being a necromancer. How could they? How dare they? Okay, we will go ahead and pay 3 mana here, and we will cast the Midnight Reaper. So he costs 2 colorless and a black. He has whenever a non-token creature you control dies, we take 1 damage and draw 1 card. And then it starts out as a 3/2 creature. So he's a little bit stronger than that Thalia's Lieutenant, which means that we won't be getting attacked if the soldier deck decides to attack us. So after that, we will pass the turn. And I guess I should have mentioned, so the zombies need to eat after all. That's true. Okay, so creatures have a thing called summoning sickness. So when you first play them, when they first come out onto the battlefield, they essentially have to take a turn to rest from being summoned. They can't immediately attack. This is as opposed to something like Yu-Gi-Oh, where when you play brains. Actually, the funny thing is, I have zombie tokens over here, and the backs of them are "I want your brains." So Yu-Gi-Oh, you could play a creature and it can immediately attack, but in Magic you have to wait a turn. So let's move on to the Hydras, and I'm pretty sure that unless we draw what's known as a ramp card, we're probably just going to we don't have anything to untap. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw a card. And it is Monstrify, which will be good later, but not right now. So we will just go ahead and play a forest, and then we will pass the turn and hope that maybe our luck will change a little bit and the Hydras will be able to do something. Because for now, they're kind of wide open. They don't have anything to block. They don't have any reactions that they can really do anything about. So no removal. So it's going to just go to the soldiers, and the Hydras are going to cross their fingers that they don't get attacked. So we'll untap, draw a card, and it is Mentor of the Meek. That's awesome. Mentor of the Meek is a really, really good card. He actually can be played this turn, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll go to our main phase. We'll play a Plains. We will tap 3 mana to cast Mentor of the Meek. And how it works is Thalia's Lieutenant is whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control. Mentor of the Meek is a human. We get to put a +1/+1 counter on Thalia's Lieutenant, so we will represent it with that die. And so now Thalia's Lieutenant is a 2/2 instead of a 1/1. So it just adds +1/+1 for each counter that we have. And Mentor of the Meek has whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, draw a card. So we are going to definitely take advantage of that when we can, making it so that whenever we play a weak creature, we'll be able to draw a card by paying a little extra mana. And that can come in real handy later when we have some other cards that, say, make a bunch of creatures all at once. We can end up essentially refilling our hand because we only have 5 cards in our hand right now. So we are steadily losing cards, right? So at some point we'll probably want to draw more than 1 card in a turn just so that we can have more options. Like I said, sort of the card advantage idea. Okay. So from here we have a choice. We do have a creature that can attack. We have the Thalia's Lieutenant. We almost certainly won't attack the zombies because the zombies currently have a creature that they can block with, and it would kill our Thalia's Lieutenant. So we don't quite want to lose our Thalia's Lieutenant. It's a really good card. So we're probably not going to attack the zombies here. That being said, the Hydras haven't really done anything either. And if Thalia's Lieutenant was only a 1/1, I probably would just not attack. Now, 1 damage can always mean the winning and losing in the end. But I also prescribe to the theory that when you attack your opponents, especially ones that are weak that don't have any defenses out, if they haven't done anything in the game, if it seems like they're struggling for one reason or another, you don't necessarily want to upset, piss them off. Because you could need them later on. You could need their help to be able to take down somebody else. So you don't want to make them too mad. But that starts to change once we have bigger and bigger creatures, because we do need to win the game at some point, and not taking advantage of turns when we can take advantage of them is probably the wrong step. So even though the Hydra deck hasn't really done anything to us as an opponent, they haven't destroyed any of our things, they haven't tried to, they don't have they really haven't made any moves, they haven't played any spells they haven't played any cards other than land. So it seems like they're kind of innocuous, but right now I think that it's probably good to go ahead and declare attackers and attack them with this Thalia's Lieutenant, because Thalia's Lieutenant will grow in power turn after turn, so we do want to start getting in that damage while we can. So let me go ahead and show this real quick. So we will attack the Hydra deck, and the Hydras, everybody starts out with 40 life. The Hydras are going to take 2 damage because they don't have anything to block. They'll be down to 38 life. And then we will pass the turn. So we will go back to the Necromancers and see what they're going to do. In this case, probably play a big zombie, because the big zombie will help us get out more zombies quicker. So we spin it over here. We untap. During our upkeep, we don't have anything to play. or we don't have any abilities that happen or trigger, so we will go ahead and draw a card. And the card that we draw is a swamp. That's very handy to see. So we will play the swamp that we just drew, and we can do something really cool here. So we're going to pay 3 mana here, and then this Ebon Stronghold actually has 2 abilities. So it can tap for a single mana, so it has that, it says come into play tapped, then it has tap, add 1 black mana to your mana pool, and then the second ability is you can tap it and sacrifice it to get 2 black mana instead of 1. So we have a 5-cost card in our hand. We really want to play it this turn, so we will go ahead and tap, sacrifice Ebon Stronghold, and play Corpse Harvester. Now, I don't always recommend making choices like this, but in this case, nobody has really shown any amount of removal. They don't seem to be, the white deck in particular, which white as a color has a lot of removal. White hasn't shown that they're looking towards trying to get rid of creatures quite yet. And Corpse Harvester, the cool thing about it is that it will allow us to get more swamps with its ability. And so we're going to use its ability next turn in order to get us another swamp here. Well, hopefully anyway. Because we do have a choice here. We do have a creature that can attack. Our Corpse Harvester can't attack. The point being about the swamps is that we had to sacrifice a land to be able to get it out. But Corpse Harvester can every turn get us more land. So it's actually pretty useful to go ahead and do this now so we can start pulling lands out of our deck and we can guarantee a land every turn. So we can attack with Midnight Reaper this turn. And attempts will be made at least, yeah. So we're hoping, because we don't, essentially we're under the assumption when we spin the table to this side, we're under the assumption that we don't really know what anybody else has. We can't see their hand. We just know how many cards they have in their hand. That's it. So the white deck could have creature removal in it, so they could end up destroying Corpse Harvester, but we don't really know for sure if they are or not. And we're going to go ahead and take that risk, especially because in this setting we can at least assume that these decks are generally casual, because that's the kind of environment I'm going to be playing them in or having them played in. So I lend them out to people, sort of like a board game essentially. Okay, so Midnight Reaper. We could attack the Hydras here, but we sort of have an opening over at the soldiers, because they do have a creature that is 2 power. It could kill our Midnight Reaper if they decided to block. But that card represents card advantage, and I don't think, knowing that they could be able to draw cards through their card, I think it's unlikely that they're going to block with it. So if Thalia's Lieutenant was untapped, I could see them blocking with Thalia's Lieutenant. When Thalia's Lieutenant is tapped, though, when it can't block, because essentially whenever a creature is tapped, all of its energy is expended, so that if somebody attacks, you can't block with the tapped creature. So even though they have Thalia's Lieutenant out, they can't block with it this turn. So I think that I'm going to go ahead and attack the soldiers this turn while I have the opportunity, and I'll deal 3 damage to them. So showing up again here, soldiers will lose 3 life, because that's the power of Midnight Reaper, and soldiers will be down to 37. So then we will end the turn, because we don't have any mana that we can use. We just have this 3/3, so we're kind of good for doing anything this turn. So we're going to go ahead and pass to the Hydra deck. Again, sort of crossing our fingers that maybe we'll get a card. And I mentioned ramp card. So a ramp card is just a card that gets us more mana. Specifically, it's a card that's aimed at getting more mana. And green decks are particularly good at amassing a lot of mana to be able to cast big things. Unfortunately, I'm not drawing any of those cards. So we have to play it slowly. Let's go and draw a card for the turn. We don't have anything to untap or an upkeep. Beast Within. Interesting. So Beast Within is a instant for 2 colorless and 1 green. And it has at instant speed, so we could play it on an opponent's turn. We can destroy one of anything, and then the player that we destroyed their thing of, they get a 3/3 green beast token in its place. So that's a good one for if somebody tries to attack us with something really big and we don't like it, we can just kill it instead. Or if there's a really annoying effect that somebody is taking advantage of, we'll be able to destroy that as well. Oh well, we will see. We will see about this Hydra deck. it's being fussy. We will pass the turn back to the soldiers. So let's untap, upkeep, draw a card, and True Conviction. Ooh. This is a really good card. We can't get it out yet, but it's a really good card. It's like I said, so I talked about this aura of silence being an enchantment. Well, True Conviction is another enchantment. It makes it so all of our creatures have double strike and lifelink. Double strike means that if I attack with a creature, it deals damage twice instead of once. And then lifelink means that however much damage they deal, I gain that much life. So if I had True Conviction out right now, then and I attacked with these 2 creatures, I would gain 8 life because they're both 2/2s. They both deal 4 damage. So that's how much life I gain. True Conviction, awesome card. We will play this Thespian Stage. It's a special land. It can transform itself into any other land if we need it to. For right now, there's no really good lands to take advantage of, so we will try to think about what we want to do here. Let's see. So we have 2 4-cost cards in our hand, and we also have Audric. I'm thinking that we want to play Audric this turn because it'll pump up our Thalia's Lieutenant, and then it'll set us up for the next turn where we might be able to play Giselle Goldmane, which is a cat warrior. And Giselle will be able to give all of our creatures first strike. So first strike just means that when we go to combat, we deal damage before the opponent does. And so if our creature kills a blocking creature, then the blocking creature deals no damage to our creature. So that's going to be really useful. So for now, we will pay 4 mana. We will play Audric. Unfortunately, let's see. So Audric came into play. So Thalia's Lieutenant gets another +1/+1 counter, making it a 3/3. Let's see. So this is a bit tricky because the Corpse Harvester is a 3/3 as well. We could kill it using Thalia's Lieutenant, but we really want to keep Thalia's Lieutenant. And I don't really think that attacking... We might be better off just playing defense this turn or being scary with our cards this turn instead of... and when it comes to our relationship right now with the Necromancer deck, I think we want to play a little defense for 1 turn only because we'll be able to get first strike next turn. So I think that basically, I don't really think that they would block with the Corpse Harvester just because they sacrifice their... Well, I guess here we may be able to be a little aggressive. I think I would still be cautious about it, but in this case, they did have to sacrifice a land to get out Corpse Harvester. They're unlikely to block and lose their Corpse Harvester, so unless they had an instant speed spell that could be cast without paying mana, which I think none of these decks have that. I think maybe one of the blue decks has that, but for right now, I think all of these decks don't have 0-cost instants. So I think Thalia's Lieutenant might actually be safe this turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to combat. We will attack the Necromancer deck with our 3/3 Thalia's Lieutenant, and then we will attack the Hydra deck for 2 damage with our Mentor of the Meek. So I do think that that's correct in the sense that the Necromancer deck I do not think will want to get rid of their Corpse Harvester, so they're just going to go ahead and take the damage instead of blocking. And that's the other thing, sort of the difference between this and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that no, this is the wrong one. Also, we actually cast a commander, so let's go and mark that as well. So Yu-Gi-Oh! You kind of have to block in the sense that if you have a creature out that can block, in Yu-Gi-Oh! An attacking creature attacks blocking it attacks blocking creatures before you deal damage to the opponent's life total. In Magic, you can choose as a player, you can choose whether or not to use your creatures to protect your life total. So in this case, the Necromancers are going to go and take it, and that's not too bad because, I mean, look, we start out with 40 life. We can last quite a long time. We can take a lot of hits before we really have to block and make sacrifices. So that's how we're going to play this one. And we're going to go ahead and pass to the zombie deck with Audric untapped in case we really need to. But most likely we're going to want to, assuming, of course, well, let's see. We'll just see how it goes. So we'll untap, draw a card. We'll untap that creature as well. We'll draw a card for the turn. Liliana of the Dark Realm. Interesting. So this is a Planeswalker, and how Planeswalkers work is you pay the cost and they come into play, and they start out with a number of what's called loyalty counters. So in this case, Liliana starts with 3 loyalty. We're just hypothetical here. We're probably not going to play it this turn, but she has 3 different abilities, and each ability requires loyalty counters to be able to use. And if she goes down to 0 loyalty counters, then she goes to the graveyard. She can also be attacked as if she were a player. So whenever somebody decides to attack, they can choose to attack you, or they can choose to attack your Planeswalker, or both if they have multiple creatures. Her first ability allows us to search our library for swamps and put them into our hand. That's really good. And to use that ability, it's actually a little weirdly worded. This actually gives us loyalty counters instead of takes away. And the way it works is that the final ability here, which is you as the player get an ability where all of your swamps tap for 4 mana instead of 1 mana. That costs 6 loyalty to use, and as long as we're less than 6, we can't use it. So only when we get enough loyalty counters will we be able to use that ability. Then the second ability is a -3 ability, so you could play her and immediately use her middle ability and basically sacrifice her immediately in order to give target creature +X/+X or -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. So we could use her as sort of a one-shot to make one creature really strong, or to try to kill off a different creature. So for now, we're probably not going to play her because we do want to make use of Corpse Harvester, and we can't use its ability if we play Liliana this turn. So the question is, do we play Corpse Harvester's ability now, or do we attack? And I think we go ahead and attack first. So we need to play a land for the turn during our main phase. So we'll go and play the swamp. So we'll have 4 swamps now. Then we will do this. We will say Midnight Reaper. We will just immediately go to combat. And during our combat, we will choose to attack with Midnight Reaper. So the question is, who do we attack with Midnight Reaper? Well, we have the Hydras that still can't block anything, or we have the soldiers who have played a bunch of cards and they're actually doing things, and they could be problematic if we don't start making an attempt on their life. The question is, Well, here's the cool thing. So we can attack with Midnight Reaper without knowing whether or not the soldiers are going to block. And that's because the soldiers do have Audric on their side. It has 3 power. It could kill Midnight Reaper. Of course, Midnight Reaper would kill Audric in exchange. But the thing about it is that Corpse Harvester's ability can be activated during combat. So if we really don't want to lose Midnight Reaper this turn, like if we don't want to lose him to combat, we can still actually activate Corpse Harvester's ability regardless. So we are going to go ahead and attack the soldiers for 3 damage. Now the soldiers, like I said, their plan right now is to play Giselle Goldmane and make use of its first strike ability to have Audric give everything first strike and make everything cool, basically, through that first strike ability. So we don't really want to lose Audric, and Midnight Reaper would kill it. So I think, just because we're at 37 life, I think we're going to go ahead and take that damage as well. We'll lose 3 life and be down to 34. Okay. So, after combat is done, it is still the zombies' turn. So the zombies are going to pay 2 mana, tap Corpse Harvester in order to sacrifice Midnight Reaper and activate Corpse Harvester's ability. So, Corpse Harvester ability is there, but Midnight Reaper has, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Midnight Reaper deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. So the thing with this is that Midnight Reaper dying sees itself dying. And so the ability still triggers because the game basically or the game rules kind of looks back in time and see if conditions are met for that ability. And since they were, we do lose 1 life and we draw a card. So zombies will be at 36 and we will draw a card here, which is Mausoleum Secrets. That's really good. Okay, so now Corpse Harvester ability works. So we get a swamp and we get any zombie of our choice. So knowing this deck, so there's our swamp, but knowing this deck, there is one particular creature I'm going to look for and get because he works really, really well with Corpse Harvester's ability, and that is this card known as Gravecrawler. Gravecrawler is a 1-cost zombie that has, you may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. So as long as we have 1 zombie out, we can replay Gravecrawler from our graveyard. So what's going to happen is that we'll finish this turn, but this turn we're going to go ahead and play Gravecrawler. Next turn, we will sacrifice Gravecrawler to Corpse Harvester in order to use Corpse Harvester's effect. So let me just show you. We have a mana here to cast Gravecrawler. So next turn this will be untapped. We will pay 2 mana again, tap Corpse Harvester, sacrifice Gravecrawler, and then because we still have a zombie out, we're going to pay 1 more mana and recast Gravecrawler from our graveyard. So we just get to keep reusing Gravecrawler over and over and over again. And that's going to be that's how necromancers work. That's how you be a necromancer. You bring back the same zombie over and over again. And I think actually, thinking about this now, I do think that it might be good to go ahead and, well, I don't know. I don't know. I guess we could actually get our Midnight Reaper back if we wanted to. Yeah, that's how they cheese it. That's how Magic zombies cheat it. Magic the Gathering zombies. Gravecrawler is such a really strong card. Okay, so we could get Midnight Reaper from our graveyard if we wanted to, but I'm thinking that it might be okay to just leave it alone for now. We have 7 cards in our hand. We're just going to go ahead and pass Unfortunately, our Gravecrawler can't block, so that's the one downside to him. So if the soldiers do decide to attack us, which is why I'm not going to bring back Midnight Reaper this turn, if the soldiers do attack, I can't do anything about it. They just blow straight through me. So we're going to have to think of a way to get around that really quickly, because the soldiers are going to start dealing us a lot of damage if we're not careful. For now, though, Hydras. The very slow-moving Hydras. And Mana Gorger Hydra. Awesome. Very cool. We still are looking for one more mana to cast our commander, but for now, we get to play Mana Gorger Hydra. So it is a 2 cost, well, it's a 3 cost, so 2 colorless, 1 green Hydra. It starts out as a 1/1, but it has trample, and then whenever a player casts a spell, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. So essentially, if anybody plays anything, our creature keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger, making it difficult to keep up with if they don't have something to immediately get rid of it. And the cool thing is that if they do try to remove it from the game, we actually can protect it this turn. We have this instant right here called Mortal's Resolve. It costs only 2 mana. Mortal's Resolve has target creature gets +1/+1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So for 1 turn, we can save Mana Gorger Hydra if we need to. For now, that is all we're going to do. We're just going to pass the turn and see what happens with the soldiers and their probably soon-to-be nemesis Necromancer. So let's untap all of our creatures. We will draw a card, and it is a Plains. That's nice. We're well on our way to getting to some of the big spells in our hand. So we will play that Plains, and then we will... Let's see here. So, yeah, I do think we still want to go ahead and play the Giselle Goldmane. So, Giselle costs 4 mana to play. It is a 4/4 creature with first strike. And then it has pay 3 colorless and 2 white. Attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So, next turn, if we don't have anything else to play, we could presumably attack with all 3 of these creatures. They would have all first strike, and then we could give them all +3/+3 just by tapping down all of our mana. And so Thalia's Lieutenant, if Giselle had been a human, then it's actually a cat. But if it had been a human, then Thalia's Lieutenant would be 1 stronger. But for now, it would be a 3-power creature with the +3/+3 from here would be a 6/6. And then Mentor of the Meek would be 5/5, and Audric would be 6/6. So we'd be looking at 17 damage just from these 3 creatures. That's getting really strong really fast. And I do... so we almost forgot one thing here. We cast a spell. So Mana Gorger Hydra gets a +1/+1 counter, making it a 2/2. So we do have to keep our eye on that. But when we can deal 17 damage in a turn, we might not need to play anything else. So we'll just have to wait and see. For now, we will go ahead and go to combat. At the beginning of combat, Audric's ability will trigger, giving everything that we have first strike, because we have 1 creature with first strike. We are going to go ahead and just try to go straight for the zombie's throat and hopefully behead it and kill it before it gets too powerful, because Corpse Harvester is really good. So we are going to attack, and Thalia is a 3/3, Mentor of the Meek is a 2/2, and Audric is a 3/3. So that's 8 damage total. That is right? 3, 2, 5, 8. Yes, 8 damage. So the zombie deck doesn't have anything to block with, so they're going to take that 8 damage, and they're going to be down to 28 life. So they are starting to get a little nervous here, but I think with the zombies, we'll probably be able to figure something out pretty quickly to offset that. So the soldiers will pass the turn over to the zombies. Let me go and move this up here. and we'll see what they have. It could there's a lot of potential with zombies. There's a lot of different cards that we can get. It's just a matter of getting those cards. So let's go and untap, upkeep, draw a card, and it is Bontu's Monument. So black, it's an artifact, and it has black creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So that could be one way to do it. Let's go and play a swamp from our hand. And I think at this point we really want to try to find a zombie quickly. So let's go ahead and, well, yeah, let's go ahead and pay 2 mana, tap Corpse Harvester, sacrifice Gravecrawler. Let's go ahead and find a swamp and put it into our hand. So there's a swamp. Now let's figure out what kind of zombie we want to get to try to save us out of this mess. So we could do something like Undead Warchief makes zombies easier to cast and also gives them +2/+1. So that could be good. We could make really big zombies. We have zombies that draw us more cards. We have zombies that make our zombies come back from the dead whenever they die. Ooh, how about this one? So Noxious Ghoul. Whenever it or another zombie comes into play, all non-zombie creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. That seems like it could be really good. Let's go ahead and keep a hand on that. Zombies get stronger. We could search up a card. We could gain some life. So we do want this Grey Merchant of Asphodel at some point, but for now I think we're not going to get enough life out of it, I think. So let's keep going and see if there's anything better than something that kills everything that's not a zombie. And in this case, let's see. I'm not really seeing a whole lot that gains us life, so I think that something that kills creatures is what we're going to go after. And yeah, I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and grab Noxious Ghoul. We'll go and put it into our hand. Let's shuffle real quick. Okay. I'll still be here. I'm not going anywhere. Shuffle up. And let's find out what we can do with the cards that we have. So there's that. Put these into our hand. Now the question is, can we do anything with the 3 mana? Because Noxious Ghoul costs 5. So we're going to have to wait until next turn to be able to cast it at the earliest. We could recast Gravecrawler from our graveyard. That's always an option. We could do Ashnod's Altar so that we could sacrifice things, but we don't really have a lot to sacrifice, so that may not be the good choice. We don't really want to reanimate this turn because our reanimation will just lose us more life and put us way too close to dying. Because we're being threatened with. Let me make sure I counted that right. So 9 + 8, yeah, 17. So 17 damage for sure. So we don't have enough mana to play this creature. We could recast Gravecrawler from our graveyard, but it can't block, so that's no good. So really what we're looking at is we really want to set up our next turn to be really good. And I'm wondering if the only way to do that might be to pay 3 mana and cast, well, let's see, how many cards do we have in our hand? Okay, so we do have 9. So let's go ahead and play Bontu's Monument here. So Bontu's Monument makes it so that creatures cost 1 less. Actually, do we want to do that? Let me think. Let me think about this for a second. So we're going to have 6 mana next turn. That's for sure. We're going to be playing this land here. If we only play 1 card this turn, we still have. Let's see. If we only play 1 card this turn, then we're going to have 8 cards in hand, which means we can discard something. So we could arguably discard Noxious Ghoul and then reanimate it next turn. So if we have 6 mana here, or if we have 6 mana next turn, then 2 of it will be used for Animate Dead, leaving us with 4 mana left. We need to get rid of as many creatures as we can in a single turn. So we do have 1 mana that we could use to recast Gravecrawler, but that won't do us too much good because that only gives us 2 Noxious Ghoul effects. So we really need 3, because if we get 3 effects, then we can basically wipe out their entire board. They will just have Giselle out. Presumably. They still have some cards in hand, so they may be able to pump Thalia's Lieutenant. But if we can get rid of at least a couple of the creatures, then it makes it a lot easier on us to be able to do something. Oh, wait. They'll be able... No, because they'll attack with Giselle next turn, so that's really bad. So we really do need 3 activations this turn. So to be able to do it, I think what we need to do is we really need to get Ashnod's Altar out this turn. Because what we'll do with Ashnod's Altar is we'll sacrifice the Gravecrawler with it. And this is what we have. We have 3 lands untapped this turn. We're talking about next turn. We can pay a black to get Gravecrawler out. Then we can sacrifice Gravecrawler, and essentially we can recast it multiple times and get as many activations out of Noxious Ghoul as we need to. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and pay 3 mana, and we will cast Ashnod's Altar. And that way we'll end our turn by discarding Noxious Ghoul, because we can only... The rules have it so you can only have 7 cards in your hand at the end of the turn. So we've gotten rid of everything. We are very, very vulnerable this turn, but next turn we should be able to get rid of all of the soldiers, essentially. But for now, Mana Gorger is going to get another +1/+1 counter because of Ashnod's Altar being cast. So let's untap, upkeep, draw a card. Is it a swamp? No, it's not. That's unfortunate, but we can still do something this turn. Now the question is, what do we want to do this turn? We could use Beast Within, arguably, to destroy something, or we could hold up mana to be able to cast it. So we could do that if we wanted. But we're not really looking at getting attacked by the soldiers, because the soldiers seem to be very focused on the zombies right now. So we're kind of under the radar with how few things that we're casting. We're not really scary yet. I mean, Mana Gorger Hydra is pretty good, and it will get really big really quickly if nobody's careful. But they don't really have to worry about that too much because they have First Strike and Giselle out. They're going to be dealing a ton of damage. They're not going to really be worried about this. They're really worried about whatever shenanigans that Necromancer is up to. So I think that we can maybe hold off on this, because we do want to destroy that Ashnod's Altar if we can at some point. But for now, I think we actually are okay slipping under the radar. And what we'll do is we'll just shore up our defenses a little bit more by playing Polukranos, which is a Hydra that can become monstrous. So it starts out as a 5/5. We will put a counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. So Polukranos has pay X and another X and a green to give it monstrosity X. And so essentially when you have double X like that, you choose one value for X and then you have to pay that much mana. So in this case, with 5 mana here, we can only choose X equals 1 or X equals 2 to be able to pay for that cost, because essentially we would choose X equals 2. So one of the X's uses 2 of our lands, the other X uses the other 2 lands, and then it costs 1 green in addition to that. So when it becomes monstrous, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures your opponents control, and then each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Polukranos. So we can use it to eat smaller creatures if we need to. For now, we're not going to eat any small creatures. Hey, Mad, You're going to get to see some craziness here soon. With the zombies and the soldiers, I think. So we played one of these hydras, and then we're going to actually cast this other spell called Rancor, which gets us another counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. And Rancor, I think what we want to do is put it on Pelucranos here, because Mana Gorger Hydra actually has Trample innately. But Rancor, what it does is it enchants a creature and gives it +2/+0 and Trample. So Trample just means that whenever we deal damage, normally your damage all just gets piled onto the creature that blocks it. So even if a 1/1 creature blocked our 5/5 Pelucranos, all 5 of that damage goes into the creature, and then anything left over that isn't actually used to kill the creature, it just kind of disappears. Trample makes it so that damage tramples over the creature, and the player takes the difference between the attacker's power and the blocker's toughness it's the term that's used. So if in that same scenario, when we have Trample on Pelucranos, that instead of 5 damage going into the 1/1 creature, 1 damage goes into the 1/1 creature, and then the other 4 goes onto the player. So that makes it really good. It makes it so that we can deal a lot of damage through creatures when we have big creatures, and we're going to have big creatures, so. For now, we just have a 5/5 here and a 7/5 here, so those are 2 pretty good blockers. It sets us up pretty nicely to take revenge if we do get attacked. But for now, we're just going to pass to the soldiers. And the soldiers are definitely going to be dealing some damage this turn. So, untap. Upkeep. Draw a card. So, we got a Plains. That's really nice. That's really handy. So, the question here, we're going to go ahead and play this Plains. The question that we want to make is, we know that we know the zombies have Noxious Ghoul in their graveyard. They searched it up and then discarded it. So that's never a good sign. And in a black deck, that basically means they're probably going to return that zombie later. So we have 2 choices. We can either get as much damage as possible in with the creatures that we have, or we can play True Conviction, and we can do double strike damage and gain a bunch of life. So with Noxious Ghoul potentially killing all of our creatures, I think it's a tough choice, because... So let's see how much damage we actually deal. So we have, on our base power, we have 3 here, 2 here, 3, and 4. So 5 plus 7, 12 damage total with these 4 creatures. If we activate Giselle's ability, then we get an additional 16 damage on top of that. So that's 28 damage. Let's take a quick look. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. The zombies can't do anything. The zombies aren't looking too hot this turn. I think that knowing how much damage we can deal with what we have, I think it makes sense to go ahead and do it, because Noxious Ghoul will definitely kill us. And so let me go ahead and talk you through, since you're here, Mad, since you're back. Let me minimize this and I'll show you what the zombies were going to do. So if the zombies were going to take a turn, if they weren't going to die, this is what would happen. They would untap, upkeep, draw. It would be a swamp. They would play that swamp. They would pay 2 mana to cast Animate Dead, and this Animate Dead, I've altered it a little bit, but essentially what it does is it brings a creature back from your graveyard. So Noxious Ghoul would come into play. Noxious Ghoul has, whenever it or another zombie comes into play, all non-zombie creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. So everything else got -1/-1. Then we pay a black, play Gravecrawler. Now another zombie came into play, so that's -2/-2. with Ashnod's Altar, we sacrifice a creature to add 2 colorless mana to our mana pool. Gravecrawler dies. We pay a black. Gravecrawler comes back. Now everything has gotten -3/-3. We sacrifice Gravecrawler again. Play it again. Now everything has -4/-4. Now, essentially, all of the soldier creatures are dead because they are all 3 tough, 4 tough, like they're 4 toughness or less. So now all of the zombies are dead. We sacrifice Gravecrawler again. We play it again. Now everything except for the Mana Gorger Hydra is dead. And that's zombies. That's how zombies win the game. They kill everything by replaying Gravecrawler from the graveyard a bunch of times, essentially. But they never got to do that. Unfortunately, the poor zombies, they are a menace. This is the worst type of necromancer. You never want to show up to a battle and see this guy across from you, because he's probably going to mess your crap up. So, yep, unfortunately though, soldiers won the day. They dealt 28 damage in a single turn to the zombies. And they are dead. But that also means that all that's left is Hydras. Hydras are going to have to figure out a way to kill off all of these soldiers, because these soldiers are going to just take over here in a second. So let's go ahead and... We know that the soldiers are dead, or have killed off the zombies, but we have to actually play out that turn. So we attacked with everything, and then after we attacked, we paid 5 mana to activate Giselle Goldmane's ability. So it's 12 power regularly, but then they each are going to get +4/+4 from Giselle's ability. So that's 16 more damage, so it's 28 total, which was why it was enough to kill the zombies. So now we need to see what the Hydras are going to do in response. So, untap, upkeep, draw a card, ram through. That's interesting. This is actually really cool. Okay, so we actually do have a plan here. We can make this much harder on the soldier deck. So what we're going to first do is we're going to pay 3 mana and cast Beast Within. So let's see. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So we cast Beast Within. It gives Mana Gorger Hydra 1 more counter, and Beast Within destroys target permanent, and we are going to choose Giselle Goldmane. So now the soldier deck does not have the ability to just give random +16 or basically 16 additional damage to somebody out of the blue. Actually, do we have a beast over here? Yes, we do. Okay, so here's a beast token. So the soldiers do get a beast token. Now that goes into the graveyard. We also have Ram Through, so we're going to pay 2 mana and cast Ram Through, which when we cast a spell, it gets Mana Gorger Hydra gets another +1/+1 counter. So Ram Through has target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So we are going to have Mana Gorger Hydra deal 7 damage to a creature. In this case, I think we're going to kill off Audric. We're going to have it target Audric. Then, if the creature I control that's dealing the damage has trample, excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. So, normally the 7 damage would go straight to Audric, the full 7 damage, but Audric is only a 3/3, so Ram Through is going to make it so that we deal 4 damage directly to the soldier deck. So let's go ahead and show that here. So now soldiers were at 34 life. Now they are at 30. After that, now Audric is dead. So they have one blocker that they can block with Audric dead. So they have that 3/3 beast, but we're just going to go ahead and swing out anyway. And that means that we have 2 7 power creatures, which would be 14 damage total. The question is, do the soldiers want to block? And I don't think that they do, just based on what they have in their hand. They have this True Conviction, which will give us double strike and lifelink. So I think we're going to hold off and just take 14 damage this turn. So that means that we are at, the soldier deck is at 16 life. So that's also problematic, but we're going to fix that real quick. So after the Hydras do that, they are tapped out and they don't have anything else to do. So they are going to just pass the turn. So we are back to the soldiers. Now they don't have Audric. They don't have Giselle. We're going to have to make do with what we have. Thankfully, we have good cards. So we untap, upkeep, draw. Preeminent Captain. That's a really good one. So we are going to pay 6 mana here to cast True Conviction. So True Conviction gives all of our creatures double strike and lifelink. So we are going to full out attack against the Hydras and regain all of the life we just lost. So we have 3 power, 2 power, 3 power, so 8 power total. And then that damage is doubled because of the double strike. So let's go and show that here. So they deal 16 damage to the Hydras. And then the soldiers are going to gain 16 life because of the lifelink. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a struggle for the Hydras. Now, that being said, Mana Gorger Hydra did gain 1 more power because Expel was cast. So it is now an 8/8. So hopefully the Hydras can do something like play their commander or make do with power increases or something like that, or be able to just destroy the True Conviction. That would also be really, really good. So let's untap all of our cards here. Draw a card, and we have Appetite for the Unnatural. Yes! Yes! So that is the card that we needed. That actually is, we pay 3 mana. We cast Appetite for the Unnatural, which gives Mana Gorger Hydra another counter. And it destroys target artifact or enchantment. So we are destroying the True Conviction because it is an enchantment. So it's going to the graveyard. And we gain 2 life from that. So we are at 22. Now we get to attack for our turn because we don't really have anything else that we want to do with the cards in our hand. So we are going to attack the soldier deck, and this guy is now 9 power instead of the 7 that he was last turn, and this is another 7 power creature, so we're dealing 16 damage. And that's just undid everything that just happened. So the soldiers are at 16 life, so they're going to need to do something really quick. They're going to have to play defense or something. So let's go over here and look and see what they can do. Untap, upkeep, draw a card, and Honor of the Pure. That's not too bad, but we are getting into tricky territory here where we need to be able to do something about how much damage they're dealing. So let's think about this a little bit. We have this Aura of Silence, and the Aura of Silence allows us to we can use it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So we could use it to destroy the Rancor, but unfortunately Rancor's ability allows it to be returned back to their hand. So that's not really that good. I think really what we want to do is try to get as much damage as we can, as quickly as we can. So I think we're going to pay 3 mana here to cast Sun Titan. And normally it would have an ability that triggers, but we don't have anything in our graveyard. So Sun Titan, when it comes out, it returns something that costs 3 or less to the battlefield from our graveyard. But everything that we have is actually pretty strong. So we can't return it, unfortunately. We can't return anything this turn, unfortunately. And that also means Mana Gorger Hydra gets stronger, but we're going to try to do some blocking maybe. Let's attack with these 2 to deal 5 damage to the Hydras, which means that the Hydras are down to 17 life, so we are getting really close. This is going to be a really close battle, honestly. Okay, so let's pass the turn and see what happens here with the Hydras. So we're going to untap, upkeep, draw a card, another forest. Yes, we are getting all the cards that we need now, finally. We're going to pay 6 mana, and we're going to cast our commander, Gargos, Vicious Watcher. Let's see. What can we do? Well, generally, I think we just want to go ahead and attack. We're going to try to attack as much as we can. Mana Gorger Hydra got another counter because of casting Gargos. So, we want to... I'm blocking the screen, of course. I want to show. Okay, so... I think we just keep attacking. We're going to put as much pressure as we can. So we're going to attack with both of these creatures. How much damage is that total? So that's 11 here and another 7 here. So that is going to be a lot of, 18 damage total. So we do need a block. If the soldiers want to survive, they have to block this turn. And unfortunately, I have to block with the... Well, I guess they could survive 1 turn. But I think that what we're looking at here is that we're going to have to block with... We're probably going to have to block with Sun Titan, because I'm thinking that we don't... Yeah. We can end up playing more creatures next turn, but that Mana Gorger Hydra is really what's killing us, because we can't do anything about it. We don't have anything strong enough to block it and kill it unless we block with a bunch of creatures. We could just block with the Beast token this turn, and we would survive on literally 1 life and just hope that we draw something like a Wrath effect or something that can destroy all the creatures on the battlefield. I don't know that we can survive. We can literally survive another, like, if we pass the turn, if the soldiers can't do anything. Yeah, I think we just block with the Beast token. We block with the Beast token and absorb 3 damage, because both of these creatures have trample, so all the damage goes over. So it's 18 damage that total, and 3 of that is being blocked. So they're going to take 15 damage here, the soldiers are, and be down to literally 1 life. Oh, what are we going to do? Okay, soldiers, now is your chance. You have literally 1 chance to do something about this, because they are going to eat your lunch. Untap, draw a card. Oh, Custodial Soulcaller is not the card that we needed to see. And unfortunately, all we can do is basically block. So we're going to go ahead and play 2 creatures and then block, because that's all we can do. So we'll pay 6 mana, we'll cast Custodial Soulcaller and Preeminent Captain. That will give Mana Gorger Hydra 2 more counters, making it a 13/13 creature, which is really big. And just not do anything else, because if we attack... So, looking at this, if we attacked with the 3 creatures that we have, then Sun Titan will be blocked by Gargos and lose. Then we will have, I guess, 1 human came into play, so this is a 3 technically. So we're dealing 6 damage, but that still leaves Hydra at 11 life. So that's not really good enough to do anything. We're going to have to hold back and lose. Essentially, we've already lost. We just are going to go ahead and play it out and show the whole conclusion, because it does mean that the Hydras get to do a really fun turn here. They're going to untap all of their creatures and the lands, draw a card for the turn, and it is a forest. That's not too bad. So we'll play the forest. We will first do this. We will pay 2 mana. We will cast Mortal's Resolve, targeting Gargos, which means that we have 2 different triggers. So Gargos actually triggers, and Mana Gorger Hydra does. So Mana Gorger Hydra gets a +1/+1 counter from casting a spell. But Gargos has this cool ability here. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos fights one creature you don't control. In this case, fighting means that Gargos deals its damage, its power and damage to one creature, and that creature deals damage back to me, or back to Gargos. So we're going to target Mentor of the Meek and kill Mentor of the Meek, because we deal 8 damage to Mentor of the Meek. Mentor of the Meek is only a 2/2, so it's going to deal only 2 damage to Gargos. And now Gargos is a 9/8 with Indestructible. So now essentially we can, with impunity, kill off another creature, and the Indestructible will protect us from Gargos dying. So we're going to cast Monstrify. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. We're targeting Gargos, so Gargos gets to fight another creature. So it's going to fight Sun Titan. So Sun Titan is going to die because Gargos is dealing 9 damage to it. Sun Titan deals 6 damage back, but even though Gargos has been dealt enough damage to die at this point, because it only had, before this ability, this card gave it +4/+4, it had taken 7 damage from, well, actually 8 damage from Sun Titan and Mentor of the Meek. Gargos is only a 9/8, so it does have 8 toughness, but because it's indestructible, it doesn't die. So now it's going to get another +4/+4, and we get to attack with all of our cards. So let me show what the battlefield kind of looks like here. If we spin this around a little bit. So we have 3 creatures, they have 3 creatures. This actually went up another one because we played Monstrify. Now we are going to attack with our 3 creatures. They're going to block one. Well, actually, Gargos doesn't actually tap. It has a cool ability called Vigilance, so it doesn't expend energy by attacking. So we're going to choose one creature to block Gargos. So all of the damage Gargos would deal to the player is actually dealt entirely to Preeminent Captain in this case. And then we have, well, actually, we'll flip this around a little bit. We'll do it like, like this. So Custodian Soulcaller will take all of the damage and die from Gargos. And then from these 2 creatures, we have 7 power here and, let's see, 15 power here. So 7, 15, 22 damage, all with trample. So these 2 creatures over here are going to block. They have 6 toughness total. So that means, let's see, 22, 6. So, oh gosh, my brain is fried. 16 damage to the soldier deck. So the soldiers are going to be quite dead in this case. And there you got it. The Hydra deck at the very end managed to get big creatures enough and enough mana to be able to effectively kill the soldier deck. Even though the soldiers had quite a good, like a really strong field going into the essentially what would have been the final turn, the Hydras were able to, at the very end, their big creatures outmatched all of the small creatures that the soldier deck was playing. Oh, wow. So what do you think, Mad? How do you feel about, was that pretty cool, or? Did you like seeing that? Did you like seeing how all of this magic nonsense that I play? Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm glad that the Hydra deck actually managed to. Hurts your head. You like the Necromancer? Well, I mean, I like the Necromancer too. I have two different zombie decks actually. So this mono black one that I have, and I mean, we already know what this is. So let's go ahead and let me go ahead and show you a little bit more of this zombie deck because there's a lot of cool cards in there. Let's see. Let's put that back. So if we look here, we have a couple of planeswalkers, but really the crux of it is that there's just so many zombies that give +1/+1 that like make all of your zombies stronger. So let's go ahead and try to find some of them. Let's see. I don't have quite all of them in one deck, but I come across it. Well, zombies. Here, Army of the Damned is an 8-cost card. Well, let me do this. Let me show here. You can see the card kind of sitting there, but let me actually give you a bigger screen to look at. I just have to pull it up a little bit. Give me 1 second to look it up and do this. So let me. Here we go. See, there you go. Army of the Damned. So create 13 2/2 zombies. How crazy is that? How crazy of a card is that? Let's see. We have Grave Titan, a zombie that like just spews out zombies. Oh, it must be in the other pile. Let's see here. Oh, here's Gravespawn Sovereign, which is a zombie that allows you to Graveborn Sovereign. Nope, that's not how you spell it. No, I'm misspelling it. There we go. Oh, come on. Grave Spawn there. That's why. I did Graveborn. Haha. There we go. Yeah, instant horde. This one, Grave Spawn Sovereign, allows you to tap zombies to resurrect other zombies. There's Zombie Apocalypse. Let me pull that out as well. If I could spell, it would be good to spell. There you go. Well, actually, I like this one. Actually, that artwork is a little bit better. That's the artwork that I have. So return all zombies, creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, then kill all humans. I love that. I should show some of the other things that. Oh wait, here's zombies get +1/+1. Zombies get +1/+1. Zombies get +2/+1. Whenever a zombie dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Let's see. Basically, another kind of zombies get +1/+1. Zombies get +1/+1. But I was talking about the Gravecrawler card from earlier. Yep, Complete Menace. Let's see. I need to go back and find Gravecrawler right here. So Gravecrawler is the one that you can do this. You can cast it from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. So I have another card in this deck called Door of Destinies. It's an artifact, so it's one of those cards that it just sits there and has the kind of static effect. Well, Door of Destinies. Let me go and put it on screen as well. Door of Destinies. Nope, that's not how you spell Destiny. There we go. So you choose a creature type when it comes into play, and then whenever you cast a spell of that type, you put a charge counter on it, on Door of Destinies. And then creatures you control get +1/+1 for each counter on Door of Destinies. So I could do the same thing as I did with Noxious Ghoul, where I sacrifice Gravecrawler, recast it, sacrifice, recast, and keep putting more and more counters on Door of Destinies, making my zombies stronger and stronger and stronger every turn, where they're like, basically I'm giving them all like +10/+10 or something like that, making them super strong. There's a lot of really fun stuff in here. Cursive Disturbance is an enchantment that whenever it's an enchantment that you, instead of enchanting a creature, you enchant a player, and as long as that player is enchanted, if somebody attacks them, then that player gets a free zombie. So you can essentially bait your opponents to attack a player so that they can get free zombies too. Because whenever they attack, they get a zombie, but you would also get a zombie for them attacking. So it's great for making people have to play sides and do things that they may or may not necessarily want to do. Because if they don't attack the player that's enchanted, then they don't get free blockers, essentially. So yeah, I've put a lot of time into this zombie deck. The other one that I have, the other zombie deck that I have, is actually 3 different colors. So it's black and blue and white, and it's essentially led by an evil Santa Claus, and all of the zombies are like, think of it, I guess, kind of like what is that legend about? Crap, I can't think of the name now. There's an evil Santa Claus that like steals people's children, or like bad children. It'll steal bad children or something like that. Krampus. There you go. Thank you, Gurgi. Yeah, Krampus. And so it's the zombies in the deck kind of act like evil elves, essentially, to help the Krampus steal people and kill off creatures and stuff like that. And the deck is also all built around snow cards. So it's really fun. I've spent a lot of time building that deck as well, because it amuses me so much to have evil Santa Claus, evil Christmas zombies. Oh. Well, thank you for sticking around, Mad. I hope you enjoyed it. I think I'm going to probably start cleaning up and call it a day. Just because I think I'm maxed out on talking and doing stuff today. So I appreciate you coming around and hanging out with Gurgi and I. And if you ever have any questions about Magic, you can ask wherever or whenever you want to, on Discord, or I post the VODs onto YouTube, so I think it's still linked in my into the Twitch. You can find a YouTube link where I post the videos, so you can always ask me questions there if you think of something later, or just however you want to. But I'm glad you liked it. So anyway, that's about it. So have a great weekend, and I will see you next. So I guess that the other thing, the other time I try to do a Wednesday or Thursday stream, it's a little less structured than this one is. The Sundays is always kind of the teaching day, to show how to play. Wednesday or Thursday is the day that I play tougher decks. I play decks that have a little bit more substance to them. I think come like the next game that I'm going to play is going to be trains versus planes versus automobiles. So if that intrigues you, then you can show up for that as well. But you don't have to. I just letting you know so that in case you want to. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.